smoker or grill? Well, today we're putting my offset smoker, the Smoke North Carlisle, head to head against my Kamado Joe Big Joe Series 3, and we're gonna smoke up some St. Louis ribs and find out if we can actually taste the difference. Let's get started. So despite this being a head to head, we're gonna be starting our ribs at 2 different times. So I found I get the best results on my offset, running about 275 to maximum 300 for about 5 hours, and on the Kamado Joe we can knock these out with my best results in 3 hours. So I've learned in previous head-to-heads, if we did both racks of ribs at the exact same time, one's going to have the advantage of having a little bit of a salt dry brine where it's sitting in the refrigerator for an extra few hours. So to help make sure that we keep it as even, I'm only going to prepare 1 rack of ribs right now, and then we'll do the exact same setup, exact same seasoning. So I'm only going to show it once right now, but we'll do the exact same thing in 2 hours time when we want to get another rack on the Kamado Joe. Since we want to get that 1/4 inch thick steel up to temperature behind me, I've already started our fire. That'll just help make sure that we have nice even temperatures all the way through, and we are ready to start rolling some logs as soon as we are done patting these dry, getting on our mustard binder, and then adding our seasoning. Okay, so now that we got those dry, we can get a clean set of gloves ready so we can handle our ingredients. You definitely will find that it's worth getting a couple packets of these when you order, since you do go through them with glove changes between handling raw food and then wanting to touch your seasoning and everything else. So the first thing I'm going to do is grind up some pepper. So I've set my pepper can in to about a 60 mesh pepper, and I'm just going to fill up this little cap so we'll be able to sprinkle that on. I'll take you fast forward. This is 20 times faster than a regular pepper grinder, but still going to take about 15 seconds here. All right, let's take a look. Oh, there we go. That is more than enough pepper, so we are ready. So again, we'll just do 1 rack right now, and I'll do the 2nd rack right before we get ready to go on the Joe. So we'll just start with a little bit of mustard. Let's do our bottom side first, then finish presentation. Go salt, our pepper, garlic, a little bit of onion, and some paprika. Same thing here for our presentation side. Okay, those look good. Let's get them on. Okay, I will add a water pan, so I'll rejoin you in a second just to add that. But for the time being, we can get a rack of ribs on. Place them right here. Set them how we want them to look when we slice. Looks good. Grab that water pan, meet you back here. Okay, we're running right at 275. Let's get our water pan on. Now, my Carlisle offset smoker does have a little water pan tray right up top here above the firebox where the fire's coming out. And that works, really well for heating it and giving some condensation throughout the cook for the smoke molecules to adhere to our food. But I found one of the things that I'm wrestling with a shorter firebox being 18 inches is just trying to keep some distance from the fire and our food. So placing a larger water pan right here not only gives us the same benefit of having some water molecules to help the smoke adhere to our protein, but it's also easier to refill, as well as making sure that we deflect all of that heat right up and over the top of our ribs. Let's close that and go check the firebox. Okay, you saw in that lighting sequence, I like to add a little bit of charcoal on the bottom. That's just going to help give us a nice coal bed to work with right away. And I place a split, so this is a preheated one. I'll place the next one right up on top of these little warming trays or drawers, shelves, so that they start to preheat. And you can see this one's already starting to smoke. That'll just help make sure that when we go and we place it right into our fire, that we don't get any bad smoke or taste and smells coming off of that. And you can see it's combusted immediately, so we're not going to get any bad smoke. So that's the game plan. About every half hour or so, we'll just keep adding a split, try and keep that out of the flames. There we go. So about every half hour or so, we'll just keep adding a log. That should help us hold that 275 or so for about the next 5 hours. So in many ways, I look forward to these sort of head-to-head experiments as much, or maybe even more than some of you, because every time we do it, we learn something that we can apply to our home style grill or smoker, whatever it is that you're cooking on. And that's really the important part. What set me down a couple wrong paths early on in my career, just over a decade ago, when I was getting into backyard barbecue, was listening to some advice, which is maybe good advice for the style of smoker or grill that it was on, that just doesn't apply. And so while a Kamado Joe is, I use this analogy, a bit of a sports utility vehicle in the barbecue world, because it can do so many things. You can get a sporty one, you can get a fuel efficient one, you can get a large one that can carry a bunch of gear, but you're comparing that to best of breed in each category. So for volume and carrying things, does it carry as much as, or be able to tow as much as a truck? No. For a sporty one, is it a sporty, a replacement for a sports car? No. Or a fuel efficient one, is it going to be more fuel efficient than electric vehicle or a hybrid? No. But it's able to do many of these things really well. And if you can only own one, just like people who buy SUVs, I think the Kamado is a tremendous value because it can do so many things well. But there are some out of the box that it's naturally going to knock out an amazing result, and there's others that we need to modify our style. And that smoking, sort of low and slow, sub 300 degree temperatures is an area where we have learned a ton and continue to learn even more. And my offset has been an amazing teacher when it comes to this. Just to give you an example, I'll just show a quick visual for a difference here. Here's what 300 degrees Fahrenheit looks like inside of my Acorn. It's a metal insulated Kamado. It's even more insulated than either my Big Joe Series 1 or 3 behind me. And you can see at 300 degrees Fahrenheit, there's just barely any glowing embers. And it will run all day with this barely glowing embers. And so that's not circulating a lot of air and a lot of smoke. Compared to my offset, if I open that up and show you what 300 degrees looks like, it was a cooler day when I recorded this, but I can show you this one right now too. And you've got nice, clean, open burning fire all day running that 275 to 300. And you can absolutely taste this difference. This is one of the things that blew me away when I did my first head-to-head between these two with a brisket. I compared a brisket on my offset to a brisket on my Kamado Joe. And one of the other things that I learned here is, despite running the same temperatures, the time is all over the place. They don't match, which is why we have a staggered start for today's video. It's going to take me 5 hours cooking at the exact same temperature as I'll be cooking later on the Kamado Joe Big Joe Series 3, that will do the same job in 3 hours. And this really comes down to the different types of heat sources and the strength of each property. So our conduction heat, this is an area that we're trying to mitigate in a Kamado style grill, or any style grill, whether it's a kettle or something like what I'm using here at Kamado Joe. When you have your fire under your food, the immediate thing that you're trying to solve for is just not burning the bottom. So the way that you do this with any grill is using a set of heat deflectors. I found, taking a page out of the pizza oven category, the pizza cook on a Kamado style grill, where you have a second set of deflectors or your pizza stone with an air gap. This allows you to run an even hotter fire without overheating that pizza stone or without overheating the bottom of our food. So managing our conduction energy in a Kamado style grill is really, really important. Next that we're trying to improve, as I mentioned, or I showed that clip earlier of 300 degrees Fahrenheit in my Acorn, is convection airflow. It's just not moving as much energy. And so the way that we try and do this is intentionally making the grill less efficient. By stacking our different heat deflectors, we're making that fire work even harder to get 300 degrees up on the dome. And that is by default moving more air. I would love to actually be able to measure this. If you guys have some ideas, or any engineers in the group could figure out how to measure the airflow coming out of the chimney on my offset versus the control tower top on my Kamado Joe, I would love just to be able to get a sense of some sort of fan system or something like that would be measuring the volume of air that's moving over our food and out the stack over the course of a cook, because I think this is one of the key variables. And last but not least, an area where Kamados shine is their radiant energy. So they trap a bunch of that heat. You can feel it on the outside. It's hot to the touch, and that is just radiating some energy into our food, and it's increasing or shortening the amount of time that it takes for our food to cook. Same thing with a pizza oven. They have a lot of the same properties as I just mentioned for the Kamado. The offset, by comparison, by even in its name, the fire is offset, so we don't have the same concerns with fire coming up and making that conduction energy a problem that we have to worry about. The convection, this is what everybody loves, and you can taste, your tongue can absolutely taste an open burning fire versus a smoldering fire, and this is the big area that we are really trying to solve. So offsets shine with that convection energy. And last but not least, the radiant energy. This is one, I have a Smoke North offset there, 1/4 inch thick steel semi-insulated firebox, sort of the best of the best when it comes to these features for improving radiant energy. But based on the size of the cook chamber, you know, we're like, I think 40 inches long, 18 inches deep, a big area that we're moving a lot of energy through. You just don't get that same radiant energy cooking as you do inside of the Kamado, which is why I think our temperatures and our time, are all over the place despite cooking at very similar temperatures. And so this is what threw me for a loop. First few times I watched people like Franklin explaining their times and their temperatures, and I go and try and apply that to my Joe, I can guarantee you, you are just not going to get the maximum result out of the grill that you have by taking a page, from someone on a completely different style grill. It's good advice for that style grill. And so what we aim to do here is try and figure out what is the secret sauce of each grill, and can we take any of those learnings and lessons and apply them to what it is that we're cooking on at home and turn out better barbecue. At the end of the day, that's what I'm after, and many of you are as well. So to set up for today, I'm going to do my double indirect setup. If you've not heard of that, this just means that we want to run both deflectors. So I'm going to start by putting my slow roller in the bottom. Then I'm going to put my heat deflectors on top to help manage the conduction energy, as well as make the grill work harder so I can get more of a clean burning fire. And this absolutely works. Here's a picture of the fire at 300 degrees doing double indirect compared to what you saw earlier with the Acorn. Same temperature, completely more open burning fire. So I do know that this is absolutely working. Then we'll go for a drip pan, our cooking grids, and get our ribs. And based on previous experience, these will be ready to go in about 3 hours. I'll rejoin you a little bit later on when we get ready for our taste test. All right on time, our 2 racks of ribs are done, and I don't think there's going to be any issue with mixing them up. If you take a look at the bark on our offset, it looks absolutely amazing. Well, we don't have the same color because we're not burning as much wood and getting as much smoke. The bone pull actually looks great, maybe slight advantage on the Kamado Joe. So let's get these off, let them rest a couple minutes. I'll meet you right here and we'll dive in for our taste test. So as you can tell, we haven't sauced either rack of ribs, and that's because I really just want to keep the variables to an absolute minimum. So anything that we are tasting should be the difference of the smoker itself. So let's get started. So the lighter color ones here, great bone pull, are the Kamado Joe Big Joe Series 3. And the darker bark, very distinguished look here, offset, is my Smoke North Carlisle offset. So let's get a couple bones out. So great color, smoke ring, matches the bark on the offset. How'd we do here on the Joe? Maybe other side's a little bit easier to see. So still good smoke ring, but I would say smoke ring is more pronounced, a little bit more obvious top and bottom on the offset. But we're not eating with our eyes today, we're eating with our mouth. Let's dig in and see how each one tastes. So the theory here is that the offset should provide more smoke flavor, and this is not so much a theory as when I did my head-to-head brisket, that was absolutely the case. So in terms of picking which one to taste with, I'm going to start with the Kamado Joe rib, and if there is any incremental smoke, that should be a little bit easier to detect going up than it would be starting with smoke and sort of saturating your palate and then going to the Joe rib. So let's dig in. Can't wait. Take a bite here. That was a good rib. I don't know if you can see on camera there. Just perfect bite through tenderness. Not quite fall off the bone, but I think that's perfectly well done. I want another bite. There's nothing wrong with that if that's our starting point. Let's dive in here for our offset rib. Again, go for a nice bite test. Okay, right away, you can taste some difference here. Let me see if I can put my finger on it. So, wow, two amazing ribs, but one absolute still advantage here. So while I've definitely closed the gap to my offset by including things like the double indirect, I still have some work to do to recreate this bark, which is just a function of moving even more air throughout our grill, as well as smoke. I didn't include it in today's video because it's just a brand new thing I've been playing with, but lately I've tried throwing in a few wood pellets. I know I can burn a full wood chunk, wood chips, but throwing in some wood pellets, using my torch just to light them, so it's almost like putting a pellet tube smoker right in the bottom, and that, in a few tests that I've done, has been giving me some better results. So that's maybe what I think might be our next step here, to try and take what we're learning from the offset. That'll help improve the smoke. Still have to do some thinking in terms of how to improve the airflow. Nothing to sneeze at with either rib. I'd be more than happy. I'd put this ahead of 99% of restaurants in my area, at least, that you can go to for some great barbecue. But does it hold up against the kind of the grand teacher here, the offset, in terms of what's really helped me know what I'm doing well and what I still need to work on? Still a little bit of work or room for improvement in terms of competing against our offset rib. That's it for today, though. I'm James from Smokin' Dad Barbecue, currently getting smoked out by another video that I'm doing off to the side. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you want, well, before you go, check down in the description. I have a link here for members. I go live once a month. I can hang out and answer any questions in a little bit more intimate way. And if you're interested in getting a grill yourself, I've partnered up with Kamado Joe to be giving away a Kamado Joe Classic Series 2 along with a whole bunch of gear. And all you have to do is subscribe. When I hit 100,000 subscribers, I'll be doing that giveaway. That's it for today, though. I'm James from Smokin' Dad Barbecue signing off. Don't be afraid to fire it up.